dogs and cats and whatever else I was taking to the horses. I'm not so much into foods now.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this special presentation today. I'm Lillian with the library, and I just wanted to let you know that we do still also have some other things scheduled coming up soon. And so next week we have a concert, some music in the morning, jazz vibraphone in the morning on September 7th at 10:30, and then you can go to lunch. And then on Wednesday, September 13th, we have a big concert at the Soco with Patty and Craig, who are Americana duo. We have computer classes going on, so if you're interested in that, please let us know and we'll get you signed up. And we, every month, try to have at least one open lab for tech questions. So whenever you have a question, please ask us. So we're happy to welcome today Marilyn Wiley, who has written the book Buffalo Chips and Company about her adventures. And I think I'll let her speak for herself. Thank you very much.
First, I'd like to thank the library for allowing me to be here today. I really like giving these presentations just because of the all expressions I will see on your faces. I want to thank all of you for being here. I don't care if it's 400 or 400. I have done this presentation many times, and I enjoy it as much as you're going to enjoy listening to it. I always like to start my presentation with this photo. This is an actual family on a wagon train crossing America. Look at all the happy campers. Yeah. The only ones smiling are the kids.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the way it was on our trip. We didn't have wagons like this. These are big freight wagons they've got. They use several kinds crossing the West, usually whatever they had. The Conestogas were big and heavy. And those are the ones that were kind of angled on the ends, and they held a lot more things that most of the time they had to throw out on the side of the trail to give the horses a break. So can we go to the next picture, please? This is the actual trail we took. I started this wagon train of one in Carlton, Texas, which is almost smack dab in the middle of the state of Texas, and took secondary roads most of the time and went all the way to Prescott, Arizona. It was a 1,200-mile trip. If we had traveled every day, it would have taken us 79 days. I ended up living in that wagon for a year and a half. We would rest the horses when they needed, and when we had good places to stop with lots of water and feed, we'd let them rest. When I rolled out of Carlton, Texas that day, I had less than $5 on me, and I was heading west. You're going to ask why? For most reasons. I wanted a better life. And I thought if I got away from the family I was with, not my family, I had my ex-husband with me. He was my husband at the time, not related whatsoever to this wonderful man here that I've been married to for almost 30 years. I figured if I got him away from his family, maybe things would change. They didn't. I brought my problems with me. Anyway, long story, ancient history. We took off. I drove the wagon. I had some driving experience prior to this. I had a little team of white donkeys I used to drive all around. So I did know how to make them go left, right, back up, and go. So you'll see we took off, and this was not a planned trip. National Geographic didn't finance it. I had to make money as I went along the trail to feed my 2 little girls and my ex-husband and up to 10 horses. Nobody died. We had some hungry times, but we made it. We made it, and the horses were always fat and fit, and it was just an adventure every day. Next picture, please. That's my horsepower right there. That was Dusty and Dolly. They were Belgian draft horses. They weighed about 1,700 pounds each, and the draft horses can pull their own weight on flat ground easily, just like you can. And so it wasn't a big job for them until we got up in the mountains. And then we took a couple of our saddle horses and brought the collars out and said, this is a collar. and put them behind these big girls, and they just walked along with them, and then we had 4. And by the time you take a horse down the road for 20 miles, they're broke. So it gentles them down quick. All the traffic driving by. We stayed on the right-hand side of the road most of the time when we could, and I kept the horses off of the signs on the side of the highway so they didn't get wrapped around them. They were tied to our wagon, the extras, and just 4 miles an hour. Just point that direction, keep going. Next photo. There we are in all our glory. Wasn't a covered wagon. Didn't have money for that. Of course, the wheels back then would probably fall off because of dry rot, and we just ended up with this. We had a $50 cotton trailer, and we put a box on it. I painted it up to look like a medicine show wagon, and we'd be brighter colored, and people wouldn't run into us. On the back end, we had a big, huge, slow-moving vehicle sign. There's Dusty and Dolly out on the front. I had a paint stallion named Cherokee Prince. We had a pony for my daughter to ride, a mini mule, and a cotton mule that was pretty mean and nasty.
How old were Dusty and Dolly?
Oh, I think Dolly pulled chariots for the Pharaoh before we got her. So she was a big mare.
Broke in.
She was broke in, and her mate was Dusty. Dusty was a powerhouse. She had a lot of power. And we're just walking down the road. You know, that's what we did. We just walked. We weren't trying to race anywhere. It wasn't an endurance ride. I was just getting away from where I was, one step at a time. Next picture. That's the view from my seat. There's Dusty and Dolly, all harnessed up and going down. You can see we're on the side of the road there. At night, because we had no money for us, let alone horses, we tied them out on a 50-foot rope to a T-post along the highway where I could find the grass the deepest. And in Texas, that wasn't a problem. In the morning, wherever we had the horses tied, there would be a big half circle already mowed and fertilized for the next year. Next picture. This is a lunch break that we had near Brownwood, Texas. You can see how deep the grass is there. I can lead a horse to water and make him drink. Yep. And anytime we stopped, their heads were down. I could even drive out in there for a few minutes and stop while somebody was talking with us, and all those horses' heads were stapled to the ground. And they would.
What year was this?
This was 83 and 84.
83 and 84. We must have had a little rain down there.
Yeah, a little bit. It was nice. The weather was pretty mild for most of the trip. We're going to show you some pictures here. Sometimes it wasn't. Next picture, please. There it is. There's your new Winnebago. This is we had a wagon seat out front, a little door that led into the big box where we had a double bunk bed, one on top of the other, one for the kids, one for the adults, little table, little bench seat, and the kitchen was just a board. Who wants to do this for 18 months? Anybody? Oh, come on. Where's your sense of adventure? Okay, next picture. How did we make money on the way? Well, my ex didn't have a job for the 14 years while I was married to him, so I was the money maker, and I would take pictures of people who stopped on our pony and hand them to it, and that could be $5. That I could stretch $5 a long way. In fact, I can squeeze a nickel so tight the buffalo farts. Huh? And my husband's shaking his head. Yeah, that's her. So we would do that. I could also paint signs. We had horses along with us that we would sell and buy another one. Like this pony made it to Tarzan, Texas, and we sold him and made money on him, and we bought another one and had extra money, and that's what we would buy a little extra feed with for us and the horses. Next picture. And I also was an artist. This is one of my pencil drawings I did back in 1982, just before we left on that trip. And I had these prints available for anybody who wanted to buy something, just to say, oh, you know, I have a souvenir from these weirdos. That's us. Next picture. Here's another drawing I did more recently. This is one of the last ones I've done. I'm a retired artist. I have too much to do now. I'm done. I'm retired. We also had a pottery company after I met this man. And that's what I did for a living. This is an Army escort wagon with 4 mules pulling it. So my artwork was marketable, like I could sell it. And I did make a living with this when I finally got rid of my dead weight and had to take care of 3 kids on my own. Next picture. Ah, yeah. Here we are coming into Stanton, Texas. You know, when you're 18 feet long and you got horses that weigh 3,500 pounds, people notice you. And the gentleman that noticed us in Stanton, Texas, ran a dude ranch for a church, a summer camp. And he stopped and talked to us, and he said, you know what? I've got a truckload of saddle horses coming in, and we don't know how to saddle for the kids to ride. If you will come and stay with us for the 6 weeks we have the kids camp there, I will feed you and your horses, and you can have even a cabin to stay in, and warm showers, and he had me at warm showers. Okay, so that's what we did for 6 weeks. To get there, we were walking along the road at 4 miles an hour, and way off in the distance I could see the storm coming. And it was coming right towards us, and I thought, this isn't going to be good, because the person that built that box on the trailer didn't secure it. It was just sitting on a frame. And it was 8 feet tall after you get up to the cotton trailer. So it was pretty tall. And I thought, this could go badly. So I put the horses into a trot, which was something I didn't do very often. And just as that storm hit, next picture, please. We made the entrance to the Circle 6 Ranch in Stanton, Texas. Next picture, please. And just as we came in there, we pulled up next to this big high building, and that cloud hit. But we were safe. They had people there. As I unharnessed the horses, they took them out and put them in the pasture, and we all got settled in for the night, and had dinner, and they had cafeteria. They fed us 3 times a day. It was wonderful. And they fed the horses, and that was quite a thing. Next picture. Once we finally left the ranch there, we were heading from Artesia, Texas to Carlsbad, New Mexico. There was a 72-mile stretch in there with no houses, buildings. It was raw desert. Normally, water was available wherever I found a human being. And they would, most of the time, they would be happy to give us to it. I pulled into a church parking lot one time and had a hose out. Thank you. Took that. We had a little tank that we could fill that carried 250 gallons for the horses. And we had a 5-gallon tank that we kept for ourselves. Just water out of the hose. It wasn't out of a bottle. It wasn't filtered. And we didn't get sick. So this is what it looked like going across that area. When we left, I knew there wasn't going to be any water out there, so we filled the tank tight, and we filled our teacups and our buckets and everything I could. Make sure we had plenty of water. And the first night out, we used it. Those big draft horses will drink 50 gallons a day. You know, that's like having a 1-ton truck or diesel. Yes.
What month was it?
We left in April.
But in the desert here.
It was May. It was May when we were coming across, or maybe even June from that time.
Wow.
The second night, we had to find water. And when I was looking for water for these animals, I was scoping. Of course, you can see out a long ways here. If I'd have seen a little windmill here, we'd have found a place to camp, because we could walk the horses over there. That's what we did that second night. There was a windmill that went into a dirt cow tank, but there was a little water in it. So we led each horse down and watered them up as much as we could, as much as they wanted, take them back, tie them out, let them graze. In the morning, we did the same thing. I gave them the last drips of water that we had brought with us. We had to do 32 miles that day to get to Carlsbad. As we pulled into Carlsbad, I could see 4 miles in the distance, the lights of the town. It was starting to get dark. You don't want to be in a horse-drawn wagon on the highway in the dark. That's not a good thing. We didn't have lights. So we made it into Carlsbad, and it was just getting dark where you couldn't see. I could see a road off to the left that went down to a green area. It was going just right through the edge of town. There were houses there. So we took our horses right down the street in front of these people's homes and got to that river. I think it was the Pecos.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and here's this beautiful waterfall. It's probably 300 feet long. And the water's coming down, and the grass is this deep. Next picture, please. This is it. See the waterfall here? And we were able to tie those horses out, and we let them rest there for probably 4 or 5 days. While we were there, the newspaper came out. Next picture, please. Carlsbad. We were in the newspaper a lot going down the road. We were on television a few times also. The Carlsbad paper came out, and they did an article on us. And I said, you know what, we're so close to the caverns, I wish we could go, but it's like another 17 miles that way and back this way, which is fine if you're in a car, but that would be a 4-hour trip with horses, and I didn't know that they'd even let us in. I didn't know what the roads were wide like, so I thought it's not going to happen. After this article came out, some people showed up in the morning with a station wagon and said, we're taking you to the caverns. So we moved all the horses to fresh feed, and they could reach the water. I said, let's go. And they paid our way in, which was good. And I gave them stuff in return. You know, here, have a picture. You know, I also used to make buckles and hat bands out of rattlesnakes we might run over on the way. You know, nothing went to waste here. So that was really, really gracious of them. We met the best of the best people. They were so awesome. And 1 or 2 jerks. Okay, next picture. There we are, Carlsbad. How many people been to Carlsbad? Wow, if you haven't, you should go. I got to go there again here a couple years ago with a friend of mine. Brought back a lot of memories. Okay, next picture. There's Dusty. She's going, my mother never told me about people like you. You can see this big long rope on her. That's a 50-foot rope. When we started training these horses to stand on a rope, we used a real big fat cotton one, so that if they got wrapped up in it, which I was watching them nonstop, I could go out and untangle them and say, that's not what you want to do. And they got to where they would just step over the rope and not get any rope burns. And then we could use any kind of rope. You could put them on a fishing line. They'd be fine. Okay, this picture is pretty interesting. Can we go back one? We're lucky we even have this picture, because after the wagon trip, I was able to get a place to live, and I had a daily journal. I haven't seen it in years. My other family took it, and I haven't seen it, and they won't give it back. But not that I care, because it's burned up here. But the photographer that took this was near Artesia, New Mexico. And I sent this photo to my friend in California, because everything else burned up in my house. So we're lucky to have any pictures at all here today. But I had friends, and eventually, every now and then, something else pops up. So, okay, next picture. Like I said, we met the neatest people.
Yeah.
We had gotten to Roswell, and we'd gone up towards Lincoln, Capitan. About almost there, but I think we're about 10 miles out of town. We're getting ready to camp for the night. And this gentleman drives up and says, hi, I'm Billy the Kid. And I said, hey, I'm Queen Elizabeth.
There you go.
Anyway, he says, no, I'm an actor. I play Billy the Kid at Billy the Kid Days. We have got to have this rig there. You know, I said, well, it's a 2-hour walk in the dark. He says, can't do it. We won't get there until tomorrow afternoon. He says, no, I got friends. We're going to take the horses up in a huge trailer. We're going to hook up and haul your rig in. So we could be there, and we had a small pup trailer behind this one that we could give people rides in. So that's what we did for Billy the Kid Days. Next picture. And Billy the Kid was hooping and hollering and shooting guns in the air, and my horses didn't seem to care one bit. But next picture. This is where he had his camp. I was able to get this picture a couple years ago when I went through there again. We drove right out here. This fence wasn't here. We parked right under this tree. I had a swing hanging there for the kids. People were bringing us watermelons and cantaloupes that they had just picked. It was great. We really enjoyed that. That was one place I wouldn't mind living again.
What town was it near?
That was Lincoln,
Lincoln.
New Mexico.
That's a really pretty area.
It's really pretty. It is really pretty. So that one made a mark on me. Of course, where we live now isn't too bad either.
No.
So, next picture, please. There we are. This is New Mexico. I think this is up near. Well, this is coming out of Lincoln area.
Yeah, that's the Bonita Valley.
Look how long we are. We've got 4 horses pulling now. A friend of ours that we had met at the church camp had a 3-year-old Appaloosa filly. He said, "You need to take her with you. When you bring her back, she'll be broke." I said, "Yeah, she will." And it just so happened that my bay gelding that you saw earlier cut his leg, and we had to put him up. He said, "I'll take care of your gelding, you take that filly." And he also gave us a couple Belgian geldings to work with also. So we had horsepower. So the wagon's 18 feet long. It's 8 feet from here to here. You know, there's a 3-corner tear in the sidewall of this tire. It was there when we started rolling, and it never went flat. That's a good thing. So we put the Belgian mares out front, and we put that little filly behind, and I had a pink stallion, and he was already broke to drive, and that stallion, he was so gentle. I'll go there later. Didn't matter what we put right here. We could just go get any old horse, harness them up, stick them right there, and when those big mares started walking, they walked too. They would be broke by the end of the day. Those big horses would break them. Then here's our little trailer we gave rides with, and that was courtesy of the gentleman that was taking care of my injured horse. He says, "You need a bigger water tank," and he brought us one. And that's in that wagon that we could take out when we gave rides. And there's a menagerie of different animals right there. And that's me.
You have a dog with you?
Several. Yeah. We just collected things. Next picture, please. Oh, yeah, I remember this place. Anybody recognize this? This is between Capitan and Socorro, or San Antonio.
Yeah.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Bingham.
That is Bingham. You win the prize, yes.
Oh, I lived there.
You live there?
Well, I lived in Lincoln and Capitan.
Okay. Did you know Rattlesnake Jones?
I don't think I did.
Okay, next picture. You wouldn't forget him. Rattlesnake Jones collected rattlesnakes. So when we pulled across from his property, now I'm looking for water like I do constantly. Even if we have it, I'm still looking for more. And I walked across the street and he had a little rock shop there. And he had 2 pits about, if you put them together, the size of this room, full of rattlesnakes. He collected them. He said New Mexico has 28 varieties, and he had every one of them. That's what he liked to do. Anyway, I asked him, could we have some water for the horses? You know, I don't have much money, but I'll give you. He said, no, just get all that you want. And you can camp right there across the street. Don't bother me a bit. And then he proceeded to tell us one time he put a tree in the bottom of one of those pits, and the snakes escaped. They climbed up the tree. And he said in the mornings, they would all be climbing up in the tree, hanging there like spaghetti for the sunshine, because they didn't get much in the pit. Well, he said one day, they kind of did this thing and could reach the side, and they made their great escape. And I told my husband, this is awesome. You know, we get to sleep right next to all these escaped rattlesnakes. But wait, that wasn't all. We were also, as Rattlesnake Jones pointed out, right back behind his house about 10 miles was the Trinity site where the atomic bomb first went off. And I said, it can't get any better. You know, this is like a park. So we met the best people on this trip. Next picture, please. Here we are again, and now you are right about here. Okay, go. Don't want you to get lost. That's my oldest daughter. She rode a pony, or this pony. I sold the black and white one. We bought this one, Peter Pony. I had him for years. And we had him in Baghdad. We still had Peter Pony. Ponies lived to be prehistoric. Anyway, she was riding along next to the wagon. And I didn't know it at the time, but there was a group webpage called the Long Riders Guild. And you could become a member if you rode a horse in a single trip over 1,000 miles. She's the second youngest member. I didn't qualify. I was driving.
Yeah.
Oh well. Next time. Oh, we had left Rattlesnake Jones' place and we're heading towards San Antonio, which is a day's walk. Everything I do now, I can't even go down a highway without thinking it would take me X number of hours to get to this point. It's burned into my mind. Oh, look at that green grass. We should stop. Oh, we don't have horses. Some things just are traumas you never forget. We were driving along, and this car came up next to me. There's no traffic out there, so they were just kind of cruising along with me, and I stopped, and they rolled their window down and handed me a bag. Well, I thought, well, what do we look like? Trash collectors here? I didn't know what was in it. Anyway, I opened it up. There were 4 of the biggest hamburgers I'd ever seen in there. They had gone up to Ruidos or somewhere and got hamburgers and brought them back for us. I didn't know these people. Like I said, we met some of the best people there. Next picture. Valley of Fire.
Yeah.
There's no grass there for horses to eat. It's a great place if you want to raise lizards or goats or something. So I had to make sure, you go through 5 miles of volcanic and you don't think about it when you're in a car. But if that's going to take you an hour and a half to get through and you're looking for grazing, you're not going to find it here. So I was glad to get past the lava flows there in New Mexico. Next picture. We had stopped here for lunch again. And this is still New Mexico. Station wagon full of Native Americans pulled up right here. And they pulled out a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I'm looking at us, we're going to have tortillas again and with butter on them. Sometimes that was what we were down to. It seemed like whenever I had a few dollars, there was no town in sight. Nothing. No place to buy anything. And when I got to town, there was no money. But we managed to survive. And anyway, so we watched them eat their chicken.
That looks like Magdalena.
It could have been.
Okay.
It could have been. The next picture.
Or close to it.
Here's another one of our campsites. Yeah. Now you can. I pulled this one out of the fire. I had a few. I mean, there was nothing left of that trailer when I was done. I was surprised this picture was left. Because there was nothing else identifiable, not even the bathtub. I really feel for those people over in Maui right now, because I know what that's like. Of course, I didn't have anything to start with, and what I had I lost. So, okay, right here, do you know what this is? That's where you stand to take a shower. The water would go down, because there was no shower in here. There was no bathroom. Right here you can see the seat where I would sit. Sometimes I could stand there. I could come around the side and see how things were going on either side. At night we'd climb up on top and look at the stars. And we had a little fold-up table. That was the dining room. Roughing it. One thing about this wagon trip that I did that's different from what the pioneers did, they had a lot of people with them to help. If something went wrong, they had help there. Nobody came to check on us. Nobody brought water. There was no vehicle that was coming along with us to make sure we made the trip. We were just flying by the seat of our pants, which is what a lot of people still do. Next picture, please. Does anybody recognize this? Oh yeah, all you New Mexico large array. Yeah, the VLA, very large array. Yeah, I thought, my kids, this was the adventure of a lifetime. They learned a lot here. I was homeschooling when we weren't rolling. And when they did finally hit public school, the teachers couldn't believe how intelligent they were, how they would speak. Next picture, please. Yeah, there it is. We look like a little red ladybug going through this big field of mushrooms through there right now. But I looked through those plains of, is it Augustine or Augustine? Augustine? The gamma grass up there. Oh, that made my heart beat fast just to see it. Oh, horse feed. Okay, next picture. Okay, now we've come into Arizona. I did have a photo that burned up in the house that showed the wagon right in front of the Continental Divide sign, but that one's gone. This was on the General Crook Trail that goes from Pine, Payson, into the Verde Valley. Now when you go into the Verde Valley, you're going down into a hole. And I knew the road, I'd been on it before. But it was all downhill, and the horses, the trace chains were real loose going down, and I had my foot on the brake, keep it from running over them. Anyway, it's my one daughter, and holding those big teams of horses. Okay, next picture. This picture was on the front page of the Prescott Courier in Arizona. This little fella right here is one of the Phippen kids. Anybody know George Phippen? Western artist. He founded the Cowboy Art Association, and I happen to know his family. And the little boy wanted to go for a ride. So the day we left Chino, I gave him a ride, even let him drive. Anybody could drive those horses. They were broke. Just kind of pointed in that direction. Don't let them wander off in the grass, because then they just go out there and stop. Okay, next picture. Anybody familiar with Arizona here?
Yeah.
Okay. Yarnell area, Wickenburg.
Yeah.
There's a 2,000-foot drop, Yarnell Hill. Guess what? I got to drive that wagon down Yarnell Hill. It took me 2 hours to get to the bottom. I had my leg on a pressure brake the whole time. We didn't have hydraulic brakes. It was kind of like just a post that was rubbing against the wheel. But that black mule came into play there. Yeah, I had and it was downhill all the way. There's the bottom way over there. I think it's 6 miles to the bottom. Took me 2 hours to get there. This road, though, was a 2-lane road at one time. That used to be the original. So there was room for 2 vehicles on there, and I stayed to the right, and the cars went around me, and there weren't that many back then. But Black Mule, we called him Burrito the Black. And he was a waspy little thing. I don't know if he ever got broke on that trip or not. But he was tied right behind me on the wagon, walking on the side. And if I stood over on that thing and just tapped the side of the wagon with my buggy whip, he'd do this. He could stop that wagon. So every now and then, going down the hill, you know, the mares, they have the britchin, which is pushing on them. Even if the brake was on, it was still pushing. I'd give the mares a break, and when that mule started just dragging and setting back, the trace change would go slack, so that, you know, gave the other mares a rest. It's kind of like flying a helicopter. You got to do 10 different things at once. And when you have horses out there from here to that door, you got to think ahead. Okay, next picture. Oh, there's the stallion that we had with us. That was a Chiricahua Prince. He had about 100 colts on the ground. We didn't own him for that long. I kept him till he died. But he was on that trip. He walked all the way. You could put him in with the mares. If children didn't know how to ride, they could ride that horse. And I never recommend a stallion for kids, ever. He was different. He was cut from a different cloth. When we made Prescott, Arizona, we leased him out to the YMCA summer camp for their children to ride in the trail rides. They kept him separate at night. As soon as you had a saddle on him, he was the oldest gelding in the string. He was great. And like a Cadillac to ride. That horse had cushion. He was awesome. Next picture. Oh, there he is again, right there. 3 mares, 1 stud. After we got down to the bottom of the hill in Yarnell, we camped in Congress for a few days and let the horses rest again. The grass was deep. It was early spring. It was a good place to rest. And I hooked up one day and went on into Wickenburg, and they're having the Gold Rush Days parade. So they had just finished when we pulled in, so I just kind of pulled in behind the last door. Nobody knew who we were. They, oh, look, isn't that a weird looking float? Yeah, well, this one floated here from Texas. No, that was great. We unhooked the little wagon. We made some money giving wagon rides at the Gold Rush Days. We camped outside of town. But once you're in the desert, the feed's getting scarce. So we were spending money on hay. But those horses don't look thin. They're muscled up and looking good. Next picture. Another campsite in the Saguaros. Let's see, that's that little white mare. When we got into Camp Verde, there was a camp, not a camp, but it was a home for people with mental illness, adults.
Rainbow Acres?
Rainbow Acres. Rainbow Acres came out. Once again, can you come? We're going to have a festival on the weekend. We'd like you to be there. You can give the kids rides in the wagon. So we did. And they had a horse program there where people would donate horses. And somebody, I need to talk to them, donated that registered Appaloosa mare to their program. She was vicious. I have never been around such a vicious horse in my life. They had her in a chain link stall, and if you got close to the fence, she'd come up, she'd break that fence just trying to get you. Ears back, oh, wet tails just snaking around. She was nasty. And we traded for her, and she turned out to be the sweetest little horse. We sold her to a gal with cerebral palsy because this girl could put her foot in the stirrup and just kind of hang there and then work her way up, and that mare would stand. And they made a great team. Never hurt her, never threw her off, never offered to do anything other than just walk down the road with her. She just needed a job. Kind of like a bunch of teenagers today. You'll notice the wagon here had a window. We had a window on each side. That was our air conditioning. You could take the panels off and let the wind blow if there was one. If not, it was not very nice. Hey, next picture. Guess what this is?
Oh, yeah, that's your
That's
stove.
my range. Well, it's not mine. You know how you can tell it wasn't the one we had? There's stakes there. But it was similar, and you pump them up like this, and all of your pots turn black. Anything you wash a dish with, it turns black. I don't recommend them.
I had one blow up.
Oh, yeah, the one we had actually caught on fire, and I had to throw it out of the wagon to keep the wagon from burning down. Next picture. Oh, there's the refrigerator. Yeah, I was lucky to get a block of ice, and it would last us 3 or 4 days. Sometimes the butter would fall in it and get a little oogie, but that's okay. We're glad to have it. We never filled this with food. I think we had milk in it, a gallon of milk, and a stick of butter, and some tortillas, maybe some cheese. That was it. And we had some canned foods. I don't eat a lot of burritos now because that's what we lived on. Beans, tortillas, cheese, burritos, and kids had some cereal. Next picture. Anybody know what this is? Think outside the box.
A pea bucket.
Honey
No,
bucket.
oh, you could, what, really?
Yeah.
Maybe for these guys, but not for us girls. No, that's the shower. You sit this on the seat next to you and let it warm up during the day, so you could stand to pour it over your head at night. And you can take a good bath with a gallon of water. Next picture. Oh, this was the most important piece we had.
That's definitely the toilet.
That's the bathroom, right there. Yep, okay. Yeah, anybody want to do this again? Anybody know hands? Okay. Gosh, you don't know what you've missed. Next picture, please. Oh, here's another person that saw us walking down the road. This is Ron Nix. Ron Nix is a movie stuntman. He had a movie studio near Lake Pleasant in Arizona, and he stopped us and said, you're sent from heaven. I need a team of horses for a commercial we're doing. If you will come and stay with us, you'll be in the movies. I go, oh no, not that. Anyway, he didn't offer to feed us or the horses, but he did give us a place, and he did give us a paycheck at the end of the day. And we stayed with him for a month or two. And I can call him now. He remembers us very well. While we were at his place, somebody stole one of our horses. Now, we met the best and we met the worst. 3 days after the horse was stolen, now I didn't have a phone, I didn't have a car. I finally borrowed a ride and got on the phone and called Arizona Livestock Board, said we had a horse stolen, and absolutely nothing happened. Never saw her again. 3 days after the horse was gone, I was giving people rides in the little small wagon, and a gentleman came up to me and said, would you like to sell that horse's hauling card for 25 bucks? Well, that's like selling the title of a car. There was my horse thief right there. Couldn't do a thing. Couldn't do a thing. You know, I bumped into him a couple of years ago again. I knew him. Anyway, next picture. There's the movie set. There's me and my daughter, one of them. And it turned out that one of my ex's relatives was there. He's probably still there. I don't think he ever had a job. But he had this whole beautiful movie set. We got to be in a television commercial for Toyota. And when he gave us the check, my ex-husband went out and bought a gun. He had some, but I guess we needed another one. We didn't buy food, didn't buy hay. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. Next picture, please. It was all an adventure. Once we got to Prescott, we went down the Yarnell Hill, and we spent time down in the Sun City area in the desert because the exes had a family down there. We came back up the next summer, and we spent time in the Prescott area, which was my hometown. This is an area out in the middle of nowhere that we had taken the wagon to because I had a friend out there and I figured we could get water and I knew there was grass. And I happened to ride past this house on my horse and it was empty. I found out who owned it because the houses were like a mile apart out there. And it turned out that it belonged to an attorney in California. It was just a shell, a cinder block with a roof and had a carpet in it. There was no water. There was a well, but you'd have to bring it into the house. I could do that. Anyway, we ended up getting that place to rent. I called the man and said, I just rolled in from Texas on a horse-drawn wagon. I said, I'm an artist. We've got no place to live. Is that house available? The empty house that he bought just for investment purposes. He said, well, I'm on the board of the Gene Autry Museum. We collect art. What do you got? He sent us a check to fix that house up. Yeah. So we stayed there. I moved in September, and that's where I unharnessed the horses for the last time. Can we go to the next picture? Yeah, there it is, out in the middle of nowhere. We hadn't been there a month or two where the family I had left moved back to Phoenix. Guess what? Their son wanted to go back and live with them again. So anyway, that's what we did. I was pregnant with my last at this point, and I kept the house rented. It was empty, but while we were living in his parents' garage, and I came back up here and gave birth to my son in that house alone. Yeah. Anyway, next picture. This was our place in Phoenix. I finally got a job. I worked from 11 at night till 7 in the morning scrubbing floors. And but I was able to get a house, a trailer, just a trailer. I put it out on the desert on his parents' vacant land. No electricity, no water, but it was a shelter. And with what I had already been through, at least it was a trailer house I was making payments on. This is me hauling water into the house to flush the toilet. But don't look too happy there. For the water, I would go up to the CAP canal with a bucket and pour that into those 50-gallon drums to water my livestock, to wash the dishes, to flush the toilet, everything. Next picture. And then it burned down. I mean, sometimes you just can't win for losing, but I have a badge. So that was the trailer. You can see there's nothing out there. So what little I had, I lost.
There's your cue.
Yeah, there was a
kiln.
yeah, I was making pottery at the time. This was like a month after I took my husband at that time back to his parents and said, "You're not done with this boy. You know, you get him some help because he's sick in the head." Anyway, so I was still living there, and mysteriously, there it goes. You know, burned right down to the ground. So now I had to move again. Next picture. Sometimes life brings you a wheelbarrow full of buffalo chips. Yes, there they are, Buffalo Chips and Company. That's not me. It could have been, maybe in a previous life. She had a little blonde girl too. Anyway, next picture. This was the pottery that I was making.
No kidding.
Yeah, I've got more talent than my little bitty finger.
Wow.
Yeah, and a piece like this would take me 15 minutes to paint from start to finish.
Wow.
So I was a production artist. I had gotten a job after I got tired of scrubbing floors with a pottery company, and they needed artists to do their Southwest pottery. 10 people signed up for the job. I was the only one left. I picked it up real quick and made them a lot of money. And then I decided I can go home and do this for myself. So I started my own pottery line. Next picture. All this is mine. We can go over the museums here, show me a pot, I can do it, you know. I wanted to teach the Native Americans how to paint. And I still can. It just comes real natural to me. I won a lot of ribbons. And I was doing art shows on the weekends, taking care of 3 children on my own. Oh, you know what the Arizona courts awarded me for 3 children? $50 a month for all of them. So I was working my little buns off in that house I had moved back up to after we got divorced. And I was making a living doing my pottery. Next picture. I was making a lot of pottery. So several years after that, I, enjoying a single life, raising my kids, doing my pottery, I met Marilyn Wiley, a businessman from Phoenix, and we hit it off pretty good. And we got married. We bought that Turtle Rock house that I showed you. We ended up buying that 10 acres with that house from the attorney. And he said, going to these shows on the weekends, a lot of work, and you got to deal with wind and weather and all that. He says, we're going to go wholesale. Business-minded man, you. So we went wholesale, and we were selling to 80 different mom and pop stores, the Grand Canyon, and 8 different Indian tribes. Okay, this is my nephew. He was in Oklahoma, and he said, I stopped at the Cherokee Trading Post on I-40, and he says, I saw this pottery with my Aunt Marilyn's name all over it. I said, yeah, that's what we're doing now. So Brian, he was a hardworking man, still is, and he was doing all the casting and making the pottery, and I was doing the painting. We ended up having 8 people on the payroll at one time. Yeah, I went from that trailer laying on the ground to having 6, 7 people working for us. Next picture. Do you remember that? Brian built this in Baghdad when we were there in Baghdad, and I still had my horses. Yeah, I still got them. Still like to drive. But that was our studio where we worked, where we shipped out of, and we had ladies working from the mine, or at the mine working for us. Next picture. And I still had a collection of horses. At that point, I always wanted to raise paints, ever since we had that paint stallion, Cherokee Prince. So I started collecting mares. We had 10 mares. Some were daughters of the nicest stallions in the country. Anyway, and we had another stallion that we were using to produce babies. And this was our home in Baghdad, out there by the airport. I'm sure you know where it is. And then one day, lo and behold, a woman came to pick up a horse, and she saw our pottery business. And she said, wow, I wish I had a home business like this. And I told her, write me a check. She did. She did. We loaded, she came back, took her horse home, came back with a big trailer. We loaded the kilns, the pottery. We gave her all the names of the companies we sold to, and we trained her for a week with her mother. Off she went, and we're standing there looking at each other going, how'd that happen after 20 some odd years of making pottery? Next picture. This is one of the horses I had in Baghdad. This is Sheba. She's a Percheron. She was actually bigger than the mares I had on the wagon. You know, with 4 people, there were 6 people in that wagon with the wheels locked, she could drag it. Yeah, she was powerful, but gentle as a dog, just real gentle. In fact, I bought her from Larry Mahan's dad. He was a draft horse fanatic, and he had 50, 60 of them. So when I went down to see him, I said, I want the horse that I can take kids out from Sunday school and they won't get hurt. He said, you want this one? Okay. And she was worth every penny. Next picture. Now that I'm retired, well, we sold the pottery business, and we were doing fine art shows then. with my fine art. And, but I still had time to go out and do what I enjoy. And I grew up on the ranches in Yavapai, Arizona, and I loved to go out on the cattle drives and ride drag and brand the cattle. I have a lot of background in horses. And I think that's right there. I'm out there on the Easy Ranch doing roundup. Next picture. And I still have my draft ponies. It's easier to put harness on one of these than it is something that's 17 pounds tall. You know? And the harness is heavy. You know, it's heavy. So we're shrunk down like this. This was a home that we left in Arizona to come here. We had just cleared all this brush off this area, and I like my kids to work, do their chores. So she's dragging a harrow, and she's smoothing out this area. We had a tractor come and pull all the brush out. That's Snickers. She's out there at the ranch right now. So now we have this field empty, and we decided, you know that Proverbs thing about the woman that's considering a field? Well, I was considering this field. And I decided, what could we put there that would hold the soil? Because it's obvious that it's slant. So what we did, next picture, we planted iris. You know what? I didn't intend to have an iris farm, but that business ran us over. We had to stop doing everything, and all we did was iris. We had over 400 varieties. We were shipping nationwide. I thought we were retired, you know. So this was our home in Arizona. Next picture. We had a lot of iris. And one person even flew in to visit us with a helicopter one day. We opened the farm on the weekends during peak bloom so people could come walk through the fields. We were about 14 miles south of Prescott, so it wasn't too far from a big community. And they would write the varieties down they wanted, and we'd ship them 8 weeks later when they were done blooming. Next picture. Yeah, we had a lot of iris. It was a virus. It was an iris virus. It took over. There was no stopping it. Last year, about September, I was talking to my husband. I said, you know what? It's time for some younger people to do this. So we put the place on the market, and it sold in 3 days. And we moved to Tyrone, New Mexico. Next picture. But I still like to drive. A friend of mine in Wickenburg has a team of Appaloosas that he lets me drive when he needs someone. He read my book. I have a book written called Buffalo Chips and Company about the wagon trip. And he said, I need a driver. I read your book. You're qualified. I'll pay you. I said, you'll pay me to do something I love? I'll do it for free. I didn't say that. I need, you know. Anyway, so this is a 1895 hearse that belongs to the Wickenburg Funeral Home. And I actually had a friend that went to her final rest in this, Hildred Goodwine, another Western artist. But and I like driving his team. Next picture. That's the same team again. Yeah, Old Spot was pretty good. This is a nitwit, just let you know. Next one. Oh, I can drive a stagecoach too. That's one of his other vehicles that he has. Next one. Oh, there's one of my drawings.